So,
Hello.
hello, dear sister Salini.
Hi.
So, as our respected and venerable Pope Leo joins the fragility of humanity, I am joining us from the road, accompanied by a very dear and respected friend. Please. My
Okay.
friend,
Hello.
and so welcome our dear sister Salini and Professor Gyan Luigi. And slowly we will be joined by another panelist. So let us offer ourselves to this walking and meditating with Pope Leo, his encyclical Magnificent Humanitas. So, offering ourselves to his deep call, we walk and meditate. So, we begin our journey of thinking together. So, I invite our dear Gianluigi to kindly make the beginning. I request him to speak for 20 to 25 minutes, followed by Sister Salini and our other panelists. Then we would have the discussion. So, Gianluigi, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I am trying to see whether I can share my PowerPoint. Can you see it now? The PowerPoint? I hope yes. I do not know.
Yes,
Can you
yes,
see?
yes, yes. It's yeah, it's
Yes.
visible. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Because I had some problems with my audio yesterday in a chat, and unfortunately, I do not know whether I'm audible. I'm audible. Can you hear me very good, well enough for?
Yeah, it's clear. It's clear.
Yes.
It's
Thank you very
audible
much.
also.
So,
Visible also.
yes, so I think I can begin. There is very much to say about the text. I am working on a short commentary, if I may say so, that is on comments of my line, notes about the text, which is very rich. It deals with many aspects actually. That is, of course, it is concentrating on the artificial intelligence, but the question of the artificial intelligence is, so to speak, a way of introducing other themes or referring to themes of the social doctrine, for instance, also of the Trinity, of the dogmatic of the Church. That is, it has very many connections with points which, on close inspection, are connected to artificial intelligence and of its use, but which at first sight could seem to be not immediately involved in the question of artificial intelligence. I will try to introduce to you as many themes as possible. I would like only to say something about the structure of my PowerPoint, which is of course at disposal of everybody. As said, I am working on a text and therefore I will probably enrich also the PowerPoint. Anyway, in the PowerPoint you will find, of course, my address. You will find everything is at disposal. Of course, the main difference concerning the structure of the text is between design pages and pages without design. Pages with design are quotations of the text of the encyclical letter, and design pages without design are my notes. So, as concerning the encyclical, of course, the encyclical is at least now an official letter written by the Pope to the different communities. It is sent to Catholic bishops, but also to the priests, to the outward of the Christianity, of course, and it is used usually to give guidance on church teachings, moral or social issues. This as regards the introduction. Within the text, we are, so to speak, confronted with two main themes, which goes throughout the whole work of the Pope. That is, one example is the Tower of Babel, and the other example is Nehemiah. And the Pope has used the two examples in order to give two different, to oppose to each other, constellation of the work of the man and of the way in which the work of the man and also the contemplation, the perspective of life of the man can be organized. The Tower of Babel is, on the one hand, the absolutization, the concept of absolutization of one aspect, and portrayed in the question of the artificial intelligence would mean to see the artificial intelligence as a product which should be judged by alone, not as something which comes in a perspective, something which comes in the history, something which comes in a plurality of dimension, involves this plurality of dimension, is influenced and influences both this plurality of dimension, society, of course, history, individuals, personalities, and so on and so forth. That is, the Tower of Babel is the negative example, of course, for the Pope. That is, it is the absolutization of the perspectives, and in particular of the absolutization of the perspective of the artificial intelligence. Yeah, I've of course said something, written something of the Genesis, about the history, the biblical myth of the Tower of Babel. On the other hand, the Pope refers to the example of Nehemiah, who is quite the opposite of the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel means for the Pope absolutization of the perspective, that is, and of course also trespassing the limits of the human dimension. Of course, Nehemiah is the example of the collaboration, that is, absence of absolutization, absence of isolation, but on the other hand, a cooperation between men, subsidiarity between men, between individuals, involvement of the individual, not exclusion of the individual. This is the way in which the biblical example of Nehemiah is used by the Pope. So we have these two contraposition: on the one hand, absolutization; on the other hand, collaboration; on the one hand, isolation; and on the other hand, cooperation. That is, these are the two ways in which the Tower of Babel on the one hand and Nehemiah are interpreted by the Pope and used by the Pope throughout the structure and the organization of the text of the encyclical. I would like to begin, therefore, with this quotation of the encyclical letter, which is, in my opinion, the position of this contraposition. The Pope says, humanity created by God humanity created by God in all its grandeur is today facing a pivotal choice, either to construct a new Tower of Babel or to build the city in which God and humanity dwell together. And so we can see the passage I quoted from the encyclical letter confronts readers immediately with an alternative: either the disorientation represented by the image of Babel, the omnipotence of man, for instance, or the construction of an environment founded on the relationship between God and humanity and between individuals themselves. That is, the main characteristic of Nehemiah is the consideration of men as relation. That is, men are not monads, men are not isolated entity, men are related entity with each other, related with each other and with God. So, and we can see now, for instance, this interpretation of the Pope about the two examples. The Pope says, in order to answer these questions and discern how to navigate responsibly the era of the artificial intelligence, I would like to bring to mind two scenes from the Bible: the construction of the Tower of Babel and the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem. The story of Babel appears in the book of Genesis at the origins of humanity, immediately after the genealogies of Noah's sons. After setting in a plain in the land of Shinar, the people decided to build a city in the tower with its top in the heavens. Fearing being scattered across the earth, they sought to guarantee stability and power for themselves, and above all, to make a name for themselves. Excuse me. It was An impressive feat, a single language, excuse me, a single technology, excuse me, a single direction. However, the project concealed a profound danger. It was a project conceived without reference to God, supported by UN uniformity that eliminated diversity and that chose homogenization of a communion. When a city is built on pride and the claim to self-sufficiency, communication breaks down, languages are confused, and people no longer understand each other. The result is not unity but dispersion. Babel thus reveals the limits of an effort that, however grandiose, arises from self-affirmation, sacrifices human dignity for efficiency, and aspires to reach even without God's blessing. This is an introduction. And we can see immediately the way in which the Pope interprets the book of Nehemiah and the personality of Nehemiah, which is the quite opposite, exactly the opposite of this perspective, negative perspective of the Babel and of the Babel Tower, and of the humanity which wants, of course, to construct, to build the Babel Tower. The Pope says the book of Nehemiah, in turn, opens at a time of great vulnerability in the history of ancient Israel. After the Babylonian exile, a portion of the people returned to Jerusalem, but the city was still in ruins. The walls collapsed and the gates burned. Nehemiah, a Jew in the service of the Persian king Artaxerxes, received news of the disastrous state of his ancestral city. Before taking action, he fasted, prayed, and interceded for the people. He then asked the king for permission to return to Jerusalem and, upon arriving, examined the destroyed areas in silence. He did not impose solutions from above. He convened the families, assigned each of them a section of the wall to rebuild, listened to their concerns, coordinated their efforts, and addressed any opposition. The narrative shows how the city is reborn not through the initiative of one man, but through the shared responsibility of all. Men, women, priests, artisans, heads of households, and young people all play a part. It is an undertaking with God at the center, which rebuilds relationships before building with stones. Thus, ancient Jerusalem rediscovers a common language, not one of uniformity, but one of communion, namely the harmony that arises when all persons assume their own role and recognize that their strength comes from the Lord. And so, in order to comment on this quite impressive, of course, interpretation of the Pope, we could say, for instance, humanity, due to the numerous technological innovations emerging in the field of artificial intelligence research, is facing a complex moment. A thorough analysis of the situation is essential. The appeal underlining the content of the passage is expressing the necessity of an awareness of the present situation, that is, the necessity of an awareness that the issues to be addressed are serious, difficult, and complex, and the necessity of the assumption of responsibility for the present situation. The text therefore urges the readers not to ignore the centrality of the question of technological progress. Technological progress is not one issue among many. The evaluation of technological progress is the central theme in today's world. Upon closer inspection, technological progress is not merely technological progress. It implies a series of presuppositions and potential changes in society, in the economy, in the morality, and the civilization itself. The core principles on which the encyclical letter is based, in my opinion, are the following. The affirmation of human dignity as a primary, unquestionable, and indispensable value. The category of relationship as a fundamental category with regard to the individual dimension. The incompatibility between the position expressed with the image of Nehemiah on the one hand and Babel on the other as an opposition between collaboration between individuals on the one hand and absolutization of the perspectives on the other. The evaluation of technology as an aspect of reality that is not morally neutral, with the implication that the evaluation of technology does not begin with the use made of technology, but rather begins with technology itself. And the revelation as a constant orientation in the uncertainty of the future. In its foundation, the text of the encyclical letter Magnifica Humanitas echoes the encyclical letter Rerum Novarum, both in its reference to the entire tradition of the Church, social doctrine, and in its delineation of a precise analogy with Rerum Novarum. Just as the encyclical letter Rerum Novarum addressed emerging social innovations, so too does the encyclical letter Magnifica Humanitas address emerging technologies, innovations. Artificial intelligence is the most significant example of technological innovation nowadays. This says the poem merely. Many times, despite the calm tone of the analysis, necessary, in my opinion, to absorb the reader's concentration while avoiding any form of tension, exaggeration, or lack of balance, the text of the encyclical letter reveals the complexity of the topic addressed through its recourse to fundamental aspects such as the dignity of the person, the centrality of that dignity, and the subordination of the economy to the dignity of the person. These are central points which we can find many times in the encyclical. That is, it is said, in the encyclical it is said, the person or the dignity of a person cannot be put into discussion. There are no measures which are acceptable which could bring to a limitation of the dignity. The dignity of the person should remain central also in case in every dimension of humanity, and for instance also in the social or the job dimension of the humanity. It is a precise insistence of the Pope to say we cannot afford a society in which we cannot allow that the society is built in which a person is left behind. This is not acceptable. And it says also, we cannot accept a situation in a society in which it is said the essence of the human being should be completed, should be ameliorated, should be bettered. No, this goes against the very dimension of creation. The essence of the human being is given. We cannot say with the technology we can change this essence. We should relate essence to the divine plane of the creation. That is, we cannot say we can in transhumanistic or post-humanistic positions, so we may modify this essence, or the essence, the nature of the man, of the individuals is not complete. This goes against plans of the creation, the dignity of the man. And also it is not to be forgotten, because one could think, well, the essence, the encyclical letter speaks is concentrated exclusively on the question of technology. Is not the case. This is not the case. There is a great attention to the question of the economy, which should always to be subordinated to the dignity of the persons. That is, there are also quotations in which the Pope clearly says we cannot say that everything in the economy is, so to speak, administered and decided by the invisible hand of the market. This is not acceptable, and therefore, and the Pope says also, the state has the precise duty to intervene in the economy in order to produce jobs, in order to give jobs, in order to give a decent life to the individuals. It is not the case that the Pope has accepted, so to speak, a neoliberalist conception of economy. Quite on the contrary, exactly on the contrary. Better said, the Pope says the state has a precise duty. The state cannot watch and see what it happens in the economy. And this is related, so to speak, to this conception to which I alluded in the very beginning of my exposition. There is, so to speak, a constant reference to the question of relation. That is, the man is related to other men. The man is essentially related to God. The dimensions of the world are mutually related. Therefore, to absolutize any content of the society would be a mistake. It is not only a question of absolutization, like the Tower of Babel, of technology. That is, let us that technology does what technologically is possible. No, technology should be related to other dimensions, and the economy too. We cannot say economy has its own laws, so therefore we cannot do anything against these laws, and these laws have nothing to do with the other fields of society. Quite on the contrary, the Pope says always the relation between the different dimensions of history, of society, of civilization, the relation is the fundamental point. This is, so to speak, an application also, in my opinion, of the fundamental position of the individual in the world, in the human dimension, in the earthen dimension, as a human being which is not a monad. It is not an isolated individual, it is an individual in relation. That is, relation is the work. The word which opens the perspective of interpretation of the correct conception of technology, but of the correct conception and interpretation of the destiny of the individual in the world. The individual is a relation with other individuals, is relation with God. Without this conception of relation, one cannot give a correct interpretation of the human dimension. I see that unfortunately the time is flowing. I would only say something because in these 2-3 minutes which are considered to me. In order to say something more about the relevance of the topic discussed, the topic discussed is revealed by the tools and references on which the encyclical letter is based. The implication of technology affects every aspect of human dignity. Furthermore, technological progress does not come in a vacuum. This is also a very important point, which we always see, many times see in the encyclica. It arrives within a context of values, ideas, and principles. It must be embedded within these values, ideas, and principles. One cannot say technology is a separate dimension. Let's not interfere with technology. No, technology comes in a dimension which precedes technology itself. It is important to understand the compatibility of technology with a pre-existing context. The technological process cannot be evaluated solely on its own merits. The text of the encyclical letter draws on the tradition of the Church social doctrine to develop a framework concerning the legitimacy of the use of artificial intelligence, on the one hand, and the compatibility of the use of artificial intelligence with social doctrine on the other. In other words, the great complexity of the problem posed by artificial intelligence requires a reference to the entire tradition of social doctrine. A complex theme requires a comprehensive reflection on the entire tradition of social doctrine of the Church. The difficulties associated with artificial intelligence require a type of reflection that examines various texts of social doctrine and extract possible answers. As mentioned, the text does not conceal the dangers inherent in every age in general and the present age in particular. Yet every era also runs the risk of creating an inhuman and more unjust world. These are also words of the Pope. And the text of the encyclical letter, here I have to conclude, the text of the encyclical letter does not conceal the fact that the possibility and the risk of negativity are present in human history. Consequently, problems must be addressed calmly and without exasperation, keeping in mind, however, that the possibility of evil is unfortunately always present. The possibility of negativity cannot be excluded. On the contrary, it is essential to always keep in mind the existence of negativity as well as its manifestation in reality in order to achieve an adequate level of awareness of reality and the responsibility in one's choices. In general, awareness of the possibility of negativity helps us acquire a perspective of awareness and responsibility. The awareness of the presence of evil is a tool in the process of maturation. Here I would like then to conclude that I see that the time is over. I would only repeat as conclusion this opposition between Babel on the one hand, which is absolutization and presumption to go beyond the human limits, of course, and on the other hand, the example of Nehemiah as the collaboration and as the reaffirmation, so to speak, of the relation of the individuals. That is, in the organization of society, it should be always be remembered that man is a relation, is not a monad, and that therefore this relation means mutual relation between men, between individuals, mutual relation with God on the other hand, and relation also of the different fields of society. It cannot be the case that a field of society, economy, technology, and so on and so forth, is evaluated without the relation and the mutual influences which the different fields of society and civilization have on each other. This is the point with which I would like to conclude. I thank you very much for the invitation, and of course there will be also in the future time to deepen the analysis of these texts on which I am working these weeks. I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is indeed very insightful presentation. I think Ananta Bhai is traveling now. May I invite our first discussion, Sister Dr. Shalini Mukkal, please.
I also want to share. I can share my PowerPoint.
Yes, you can.
Okay, just a minute. Okay. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, we can. We can see
or
it.
do I make it bigger? Let me see, just a moment. Okay, I think that is all. Okay, there would be, hopefully, there would be some repetition because we are talking about the same document. So, Magnifica am I audible enough?
Yes.
Am I audible enough?
Yes, sister. Yes.
Okay. So, Magnifica Humanitas is the first encyclical by this Pope. He was elected as Pope in May 2025, and we are in July 2026. And this is his first encyclical. Already Professor Luigi has told us, gave us an introduction, what's the meaning of encyclical, etc. So it focuses on safeguarding the human person in an era of artificial intelligence. We are very much into that era, and how to safeguard human person here. It's a modern update on aspects of Catholic social teaching, drawing parallels between the 19th century industrial revolution and today's digital transformation. We will further see that. Before Pope Leo XIV, he is also walking in the footsteps of his predecessors when faced with an invention that has a double-edged sword to do good but also to destroy. I think we need to pay attention to that when we talk about digital culture, artificial intelligence, digital revolution. We have to think of all this technological development is something like a double-edged sword. That means it can do good for humanity, but also it can destroy. So we have, in 1957, Pope Pius XII issued what is called Miranda prosus, that is with the progress of film, radio, and television. Pope John Paul II, who is a saint now, he wrote about the internet way back in 2002. Pope Francis, in a similar way, spoke about communication, mentioning even artificial intelligence during his time. The main concern of this document, as well as all other earlier social teachings of the Church, is the human person. So today it is in the age of AI, the human person should maintain her or his dignity, truth, and freedom, and not be artificially manipulated. That is the main concern of this encyclical. And so when we think of from a Christian perspective, why is the Church continuously addressing the human person and human person's dignity? Why the centrality of the human person in Christian doctrine? Just to give a little bit of to understanding that background, Christian doctrine goes back to, we go back, whenever human person I mentioned, we go back to the time of creation of the humans and all the entire creation in the book of Genesis of the Hebrew Bible. And that is Genesis 1:26-27. We are clearly told by the author, scripture author, that human beings are created in the image and likeness of God. That is a very foundational stone to have the centrality of the human person. Second, all through the Hebrew Bible and later to the Christian Bible, New Testament, we see God's covenant with the humans. There is the whole story of the fall of human beings, and then God makes covenant with the humans, the first covenant, the old covenant, the new covenant in Jesus, and all in view of God's concern for the human being and human being's salvation, and God's desire to save humanity. And that is all along in the salvation history as we talk. God has a desire to save the fallen humanity, the disobedient humanity that has been alienated from God through the first sin of disobedience of the first human couple. And so ever since, God has a desire to bring human beings back to God's self, to restore that relationship. And then we see in that process of God's desire to save humanity, we see Jesus is being sent to become a human being, God's word becoming flesh, God becoming flesh, God becoming a human being like us in order to take us back to God. And we also see in the teachings and actions of Jesus the centrality of the human being, human person, to the extent Jesus would say, for the Jewish law, Mosaic law, Sabbath was so sacrosanct. And Jesus did heal people on the Sabbath day. And he got, got in opposition with the Pharisees and the scribes because he did something unlawful according to the Mosaic law. And Jesus justifies himself by saying, Sabbath is made for human being, and human being is not made for Sabbath. And so in every way Jesus speaks about his teaching, everything is centered around the invaluable dignity of the human being. I also want to say one word about Christian understanding of salvation so that we will be able to understand the social doctrines of the church. For a time, Christian understanding of salvation was very much otherworldly. That means salvation means saving the soul of human being. And it was the concern was only saving the soul. For many centuries, church had that understanding, and therefore, the Greek philosophy kind of added to this the duality of Greek philosophy, seeing everything in two categories. And therefore, body was seen as something, is of this world, nothing to be worried. And what is to be worried is the salvation of the soul. Worry about only the eternal reward that you get after your death. And slowly the church understood salvation in a different way, in a more holistic way, as we gradually understood in the light of the gospel, beginning to understand human being is an embodied spirit. It is not body soul separation, but it is one whole human being. And therefore salvation is seen more and more as the human well-being, seen as the human wholeness, the humans attaining wholeness. Therefore, salvation is seen to be not only just the otherworldly, it starts here and now in this world. And in this whole understanding also, body matters. And therefore, we need to take care of the entire human person. Therefore, the human dignity means it is not dignity of the soul or the spirit, dignity of the person, the embodied person. And so this kind of understanding of salvation also helped in the church's understanding to work for human well-being. And therefore, I think this was spoken by Professor Gianluigi. I just very, very fast, I just taken from the introductory note. Pope Leo is saying humanity is facing a pivotal choice, and either to construct a new Tower of Babel, he already mentioned that biblical image, or to build the city in which God and humanity dwell together. And this part is very interesting. In the same paragraph, Pope Leo says, each generation inherits the task of shaping its own era. That means it is our turn to shape the present era, of guiding history to become a place where the dignity of every person is safeguarded and justice is promoted and fraternity is made possible. And at the same time, Leo is aware that every era also runs the risk of creating an inhumane and more unjust world. I think that's what we are also experiencing at the moment. More wars, more violence, more inequality, more injustice, exploitation. Therefore, we wish to engage and hear whom it is addressed, not only to the Catholics, not only the Christians, but he says he wished to engage in dialogue with all men and women of our time, with whom we share the events, because all of us are affected by the same history, same events, questions and aspirations of humanity. Therefore, together with them, we seek to identify new paths for the common good and for promoting a dignified life for all. And so we just tell a small historical note to understand. When Pope Leo, when he was elected as the Pope after Pope Francis, he chose the name Pope Leo the 14th. And so there is some connection between taking that name. And Pope Leo the 13th, he was the first one, published his encyclical Rerum Novarum in 1891. And so that was a kind of a revolutionary encyclical in the way the church first time coming out with a social doctrine. That means church is not only proclaiming Jesus and proclaiming the reign of God, proclaiming the earthly, the heaven, but the church is interested in its pastoral mission, What can we do, to help the society to become a better? And how can we help people to attain their wholeness, their wellness? And when Pope, came out with this encyclical, there was objections raised because it was a new path for the church. And so Leo XIII responded to this objection, saying that the proclamation of the gospel cannot overlook the concrete lives of the people. So that's more or less the first time church is opening its eyes. What does it mean, proclamation of the gospel? Good news means that it is to be proclaimed in the concrete life situation of the people. So the magisterium, that is the teaching authority of the church, pastors, theologians, and faithful have continued to reflect on social issues in the light of the gospel ever since. He spoke in his time of new things. That is the name of the encyclical Rerum Novarum, the new things. So today when we look at, at that time it was industrial revolution. And today the increasing use of digitalization, artificial intelligence and robotics are transforming our world. In itself, in paragraph 4, Pope says, technology as a force should not be considered antagonistic to humanity. On the contrary, it has formed a part of our history since the beginning as a profoundly human reality linked to the autonomy and freedom of man or human. It has significantly improved the living conditions of humanity. So he acknowledged the good that being achieved by technological, improvement. So it is necessary to establish adequate, therefore he says, we are not altogether saying no to technology, but what is needed is to have adequate regulatory tools capable of upholding justice and curbing the distorting effects of technological power. And he quotes Pope Francis saying, it must also be recognized that nuclear energy, biotechnology, information technology, knowledge of our own DNA, and many other abilities which we have acquired have given those with the knowledge and especially the economic resources to use them an impressive dominance over the whole of humanity and the entire world. That is the danger. Power is being concentrated. Even technological power is concentrated into fewer and fewer hands. That is the danger. Therefore, the questions that we need to ask, and the encyclical asking, where are we going? What direction should we choose as a people and as a human community? So, in order to answer these questions and discern how to navigate responsibly the era of AI, Pope Leo proposes two images from the Bible. We have already seen the construction of the Tower of Babel in book of Genesis, the rebuilding of walls of Jerusalem in the book of Nehemiah. Even though Gianluigi already said maybe a few things to highlight, the people decided to build the city and a tower with top in the heavens. Then, you already seen a single language, a single technology, a single direction. It was project conceived without reference to God. The result is not a unity, but a dispersion. The book of Nehemiah, on the other hand, opens at a time of great vulnerability in the history of ancient Israel. They had been deported to exile into Babylon. And after almost spending more than 50 years, a portion of the people returned to Jerusalem. And the city was still in ruins. The walls collapsed and the gates burned. Upon arriving, Nehemiah examined and the destroyed areas in silence. Very, very important, that part. Maybe with a lot of reflection, silence. Then he convened the families, assigned each of them a section of the wall to rebuild. He listened to their concerns, coordinated their efforts, and addressed any opposition. Then, as a result, the city is reborn through the shared responsibility of all men, women, priests, artisans, heads of households, and young people all play a part in that rebuilding. It's an undertaking with God at the center, which rebuilds relationships before rebuilding with the stones. And here all are given their own section of the wall. I am not going, it is all there. This is a logic of subsidiarity. Each one which values the cooperation between generations, peoples, disciplines, cultures as the best way of fostering stability, prosperity, and peace. In the era of artificial intelligence, when human dignity is threatened by new forms of dehumanization, ours is the pressing duty to remain profoundly human. That is what the encyclical is all about. How can we remain humans? Like Nehemiah, let us pray, plan wisely, and work perseveringly, placing God at the forefront of our actions and the human person at the center of our choices. And therefore, he says at the end, finally, we meet righteousness and peace will embrace. That's what the vision. One word about the social doctrines of the church, which is elaborately mentioned in this encyclical. This present encyclical also comes under the social doctrines of the church. So over the centuries, the fruitful dialogue between the gospel and the human knowledge, the church, has progressively developed her social doctrine. That means social doctrines as a fruit of the reflection between the gospel and also in dialogue with what's going on, the human sciences, the discoveries, the new knowledge. So social doctrines of the church was coined, this term was coined by Pope Pius XII in 1950, not very, very long ago. But its content began to take shape as an organic corpus of social teaching with Leo XIII's encyclical Rerum Novarum. We had just mentioned about this. This Rerum Novarum places a dignity of work and the workers at the forefront of its reflection. Remember, it is a time of industrial revolution. The workers had no rights and they were exploited for profit. And therefore, it is in this context that Rerum Novarum affirms the dignity of work and of workers, affirms the right to a fair wage for oneself and one's family, recognizes that persons have a fundamental value that takes precedence over capital and profit. And later, I'm just counting one or few more of this. In Pastem Terrace, that is much later in the early 1960s, John 23rd addressed for the first time not only the faithful, but also people of goodwill, as the present Pope is also doing, we mentioned, organically linking the dignity of the person to the recognition of fundamental rights and duties and proposing a direction for society. By then, we have to place it 1948, the UN comes up with fundamental rights, and therefore dignity is now combined with the fundamental rights of human beings. In the Vatican II, between 1962 and 65, the Pastoral Constitution, Gaudium et Spes, Light of the World, the Council presented the image of a church that is close to humanity, engaged with the world, and committed to reflecting on the concrete reality of historical situations rather than abstract concepts. The text addresses major issues of the time of marriage and family, economic and societal life, the political community, war and peace, etc. So later, we're coming to Pope Francis in Laudato Si, an added element comes provided the first significant systematic treatment of the environmental crisis in the social encyclical, demonstrating that it is not an isolated issue. So human dignity, social issues, it is very much interrelated to the environment issues, but rather the ecological aspect of the contemporary socio-economic crisis. His proposal for an integral ecology combined care for our common home with a preferential option for the poor, and strongly affirmed that the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor cannot be separated. And in order to understand again this encyclical, it would be nice to keep in mind what are the foundations of social doctrines of the church. Just the title, Human Person, Image of the Triune God. Already I mentioned that. The equal dignity of all human beings. And unfortunately, we have to admit, and Pope Leo admits also in this present document, that Church did not adhere to this all along in her history. There was time the Church closed her eyes to slavery. Almost 10 to 12 million people from African continents and other places were enslaved. They were made to slaves, and their dignity was not upheld at that time. And in this encyclical, I think it is number 165, if I am not mistaken, Pope publicly acknowledges and says sorry for what has happened at that time. The equal dignity of all human beings, the supreme value of human rights. Then social doctrine also has certain principles to understand. The principle of common good. The common good consists in the sum total of social conditions which allow people either as groups or as individuals to reach their fulfillment more fully and more easily. And other principles are principle of universal destination of goods, principle of subsidiarity, of solidarity, of social justice, and integral human development. And moving forward, the technocratic paradigm and digital power. So Pope notes that technology is not simply a tool. When it becomes the standard by which everything is judged, it begins to dictate what matters and what can be discarded, reducing creation to an object of exploitation and human beings to mere cogs in a system driven toward ever greater efficiency. That is the danger. That's what the Pope is talking about. In many cases, within the digital context, this is another important aspect to be taken note of. Control over platform infrastructure, data, and computing power does not rest with the states. And that is very, very dangerous situation, but with major economic and technological actors. So state have no control over who uses it, at what purpose, and how it excludes, how it undermines the dignity of vast number of people. This is the danger. Faced with this concentration of power in the digital world, criteria for judgment and discernment in this new situation is the noble principles of social doctrine already mentioned. The dignity, common good, universal destination of goods, etc. A word about artificial intelligence. I am not completing because I myself did not complete reading the document. I am still on the way. Need to ensure that it will always be human intelligence with its conscience and freedom that guides technical innovations. So there is a danger that everything may go out of the control of human intelligence and by artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence has no conscience and freedom and responsibility. Therefore, that is another thing that we need to be aware of. And then Pope says in personal use, three aspects in particular deserve careful consideration. The ease with which results are obtained, the impression of objectivity, impression. It is really not objective, impression. and the simulation of human communication. AI can also encourage excessive reliance and the search for ready-made answers, and that can weaken personal creativity and judgment. This is a real danger. The apparent objectivity of the responses and suggestions these systems provide can lead us to overlook the fact that they reflect the cultural assumptions of those who designed and trained them with all their strengths and limitations. Almost coming to current AI systems require enormous. Another aspect coming from in continuation with Laudato Si of Francis. Current AI systems require enormous amounts of energy and water, significantly influencing carbon dioxide emissions, and place heavy demands on natural resources. And that means more and more people becoming poor and becoming, their dignity being taken away, their livelihood being taken away. Therefore, it is essential to develop more sustainable technological solutions that reduce environmental impact and help protect our common home. For AI to respect human dignity and truly serve the common good, responsibility must be clearly defined at every stage. That means from those who design and those who develop these systems to those who use them and rely on them for concrete decisions. And therefore, AI tends to amplify the power of those who already possess economic resources already. Therefore, communities and intermediary organizations are reduced. They are passive recipients. They are not active agents. And if they are not active with their passive recipients, again we have to question what is the dignity of that human being. To speak of the universal destination of goods means finding ways of ensuring universal access to both the technologies and the education needed to use them. Pope Leo uses the term to disarm AI. To disarm does not mean rejecting technology, but preventing it from dominating humanity. And other dangers of AI, intelligence when absolutized overshadows other essential dimensions of life, especially human life, such as affection, the will, commitment, and relationships. That is the real danger. The ability to care for one another is a fundamental dimension of our humanity. And all these need to be sustained and developed further. At the end of this reflection, the Pope proposes a sober yet a demanding program of Christian life with which we can navigate this epochal change in the light of the gospel. And I have not entered into that session at all.
Thank you, Sister Shalini. Thank you for very comprehensive presentation. Now I invite Anant Bhai to invite other discussions. I think we have with us Dr. Christopher David. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
may I invite? Anant Bhai. Thank you.
Yes, please, Minati. Please do join in and let us invite our Christopher David, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm just trying to find the, thank you so much, the sharing for my PowerPoint presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are very much audible. Yeah, we can hear.
Yes. I'm just trying to actually find the setting for my PowerPoint presentation to share my screen here on Zoom, which is playing up at the moment for me. But just in the event that I cannot do that, I think I should just begin to start with my presentation anyway. I had a rather interesting conversation yesterday with His Eminence Cardinal Wilfred Napier, one of the cardinals of the Catholic Church in South Africa. Very brief discussion on the very lengthy papal encyclical by the Holy Father. And His Eminence was drawn to the images of Babel, the Tower of Babel, and the way in which society at the time began to construct this tower, and then to the building of the walls of Jerusalem, the rebuilding of a society by Nehemiah, and the way in which that society took forward the project with the involvement of God. And he said, the ultimate, the point of all of this is that human beings are the very center of our technology. We should be at the center of the technology and of greater value than the products of that technology in terms of profits and all of the other benefits that flow from that. That technology really is made for the greater good of humanity rather than humanity for the greater good of the technology. And my own reading of the encyclical, I think, when I looked at it, apart from the words of the text of the encyclical and what it was saying, and who it was addressing, it is within a particular context, and it's within a particular age. We find ourselves in the 21st century in a context 2,000 years after the birth of Christ. And the context is spiritual. It's spiritual in the sense that we have a God, and the church itself believes in a God who is the creator of all things, and that God can intervene in human situations. And there is a reliance by society and people, individuals, communities, families, schools, universities, on the presence of the God, the creator. There is life and death, and there is seasons between birth and death. And this encyclical addresses us from a foundation of spirituality, from the foundation of a church, the leader of a church, Pope Leo as the leader of a significant part of the global population. And he's addressing the society, the humanity, the created by this God. And one of the catechisms of the Catholic Church is that God made us to love him and to serve him. And humanity in its guises over the ages, and humanity is an individual, the individual person, the family, the schools and universities, our governments, educators, intellectuals, the institutions, the innovators and entrepreneurs, the creatives, the people who create art, music, film, television, apps, architecture, our doctors, medical practitioners, manufacturers, and of course, the state, various guises of the state in terms of government, both local government, municipal government, provincial and state government, and of course, national governments, and the institutions which we have in the world at the moment. And then looking at legislation, in the context of legislation, how do we deal with the emergence of a technology that is neither human nor spiritual, a technology that is based on information and which can be manipulated, and that, of course, within a set of values which society runs through all of its ages spiritually, which is good and evil, healing and sin. And how do we, as Christians or Catholics, place ourselves in the context of the emergence of this technology, which has consequences for all of the elements, all of the pillars of the foundations, which we have: the church, humanity, the individual, the person who uses this technology, the person who is replaced by this technology, the government which can surveil its citizens and influence its citizens through information that it gathers by this technology, how society legislates this technology, and then, of course, how we as a community should deal with the balancing of the issues of mercy, of grace, of healing, of compassion in the context of AI and the effect and the consequences of which it will have on the world. And then to look at the reordering of society in terms of the creators of AI and the control that they can have and the effects of the technology and the misuse of this technology by any of the actors on society, the grave effects. And the Holy Father seeks to create a discourse in terms of what we should be aware of and in terms of the values of the church on its people and how we should ensure that this message is taken into society and the values that we should uphold in respect of it. I have actually prepared a talk on this, I think, which I will read through. Unfortunately, I don't seem to be able to share my PowerPoint presentation, but I will read through a very brief summary of one particular chapter that I think is very relevant to the global south, being South African, and also to the emerging world, on the effect that this technology will have and the safeguards that the Holy Father is talking about in respect of the human person. And the particular chapter that I reflected on was chapter 4, which deals with safeguarding the human person, a reflection on chapter 4, truth, work, and freedom. Dear friends and fellow seekers, thank you for walking this road together with us this evening, to our colleagues from India and around the world. In Magnifica Humanitas, Pope Leo XIV keeps one image before us from the beginning to the end. We are building a Tower of Babel. Are we building a Tower of Babel? Or are we rebuilding Jerusalem, brick by brick, as Nehemiah did? The first two chapters give us the principles: human dignity, the common good, solidarity, subsidiarity. The third chapter looks at artificial intelligence in the eye and asks, what is it and what is it not? This evening, I want to walk with you through chapter 4, which is where the encyclical comes down from the mountain and into the streets. It is entitled Safeguarding Humanity at a Time of Transformation, and it rests on 3 pillars. The very ordinary, very human words: truth, work, and freedom. The Holy Father's conviction is simple. When our tools change, our daily lives change. With them, so we must ask, in each of these 3 areas, is technology helping us to remain human or quietly teaching us to become something else? The first pillar, which the Holy Father addresses, is truth as a common good. He uses the word truth in a very particular context as averse to falsehood or lies or misrepresentation. The Pope begins with truth, and he makes a striking claim. Truth is not the private property of the powerful. It is a common good, something that belongs to all of us together, like clean air or clean water. Now, disinformation did not begin with AI, but as he says today, it has found a powerful amplifier. Images can be faked, videos can be manufactured, voices can be manipulated, cloned. The line between fact and opinion, between the real and the invented, grows blurred. And this is not merely a technical problem, it is a moral and a spiritual one. Because the society that no longer agrees on what is true cannot trust, and a society that cannot trust cannot hold together. He reminds us that the truth of facts is built patiently, through verification, through honest argument, through relationships of trust. It cannot be produced by a machine or handed down by an algorithm. He warns that the most dangerous condition is not when people believe lies, but when they lose the very ability to tell the difference between what is true and what is false. He says in paragraph 132, only the shared pursuit of veracity of facts, perceived as a common good, can provide a solid foundation for just communication. This is where the Holy Father turns to education, and he speaks directly to us and to our children. He's honest. We are simply not ready at the level of education for what is happening. Digital life trains us in speed and instant answers, but wisdom, he says, is learnt slowly. He recalls Plato's image that the deepest things are learned only after much time, by striking ideas together like flint until a spark of understanding is kindled. The danger, he warns, is that the ease of getting an instant answer will extinguish in our young people the very desire to ask the question. So, the first task of safeguarding the human person is to protect our love of truth in our newspapers, in our schools, in our families, and to ourselves in our own hearts. The second pillar, which the Holy Father set out, was the dignity of work, which of course will be a consequence, an issue that will be affected by AI. The second pillar of work, and here the encyclical returns to the very soil from which the Catholic social teaching first grew. It was on the dignity of workers that Pope Leo XIII wrote Rerum Novarum 135 years ago. Now Pope Leo XIV takes us up the same thread into the age of automation. He says something we must not rush past. Work is not simply a way of earning money. It is, in his words, a requirement of the human condition, a normal path toward maturity, development, and personal fulfillment. Through our work, we take part in God's own creating. We support our families, we build with others, but none of us can build alone. This is close to wisdom of St. Benedict, ora et labora, prayer and work as one human response to God. And then he speaks plainly about our fears. The coming together of automation, robotics, and AI is transforming the very structure of work. We are told that it will make everything better, but the Pope is not naive. Too often he says that the new ways of working are not better. Machines are not designed to support the workers. Instead, the worker is forced to keep up with the machine, de-skilled, placed under constant surveillance, and reduced to rigid and repetitive tasks. In India, this is not an abstract worry. We have one of the largest information technology workforces in the world in India. Many of its young people's hopes rest on these jobs. When the media reported on this encyclical, it fixed on exactly this point, the risk of employment, and the Holy Father's call to regulate wisely. Our own bishops named unemployment, inequality, and surveillance as presenting dangers to the people of the world, and they warned that AI, left unchecked, could deepen old wounds of discrimination. In paragraph 152, the Holy Father says that the human person is an end, not a means, and the economic order must remain subordinate to human dignity and the common good. The Pope's answer is not to reject technology, but to insist that every step of automation be measured against the human person. Protect employment, invest in retraining, so the cost of the change does not fall only on the weakest. And let businesses count the dignity of work among their true measures of their success, not just profit alone. When these conditions are present, he says, no innovation becomes an ally of dignified work. Without them, it becomes an accelerator of injustice. And the third and final pillar that the Holy Father has enumerated is the protecting of freedom. He says this is the most important and sobering section. The third pillar of freedom, and here the Pope names two threats, one visible and one hidden. The first is the quiet erosion of our inner freedom. So many platforms are built deliberately to capture our attention and our time, exploit our weaknesses. When the business model thrives on human weakness, he says, the person is treated as a means, not an end. And there is a subtle danger still, controlled through data. When every movement, purchase, and preference leaves a trace, a new power emerges, the power to profile us, to predict us and nudge us, often without even us knowing. Freedom in the digital age is no longer only a private matter of heart. It has become a public concern that demands clear rules and real limits. But the second threat is the one that should trouble our conscience most. The Holy Father lifts the curtain on what he calls a new form of slavery hidden inside the digital economy. Nothing in the world of AI reminds us is weightless or magical. Even flawless answer on screen rests on long hidden chains of minerals, of energy, and above all, people. Let us register that image in our heads, in our minds. He asks us to see them, the millions who label data, who moderate disturbing content for minimal wages, many of whom are young women, the children and adolescents who crush rock in dangerous conditions to extract rare earths that are used inside our devices, the victims of trafficking moved through the very same digital networks that carry our messages and money. In paragraph 173, he says if technology promises emancipation, yet produces new forms of global subordination, it stands in contradiction to the fundamental principles of human dignity. The Holy Father goes further, and he does something rare. He asks for pardon, recalls that it took the Church 18 centuries to condemn slavery fully and without exception, and he calls that delay a wound in the Christian memory. Then he turns the lesson towards us. If we do want to ask pardon again in the future, so if we don't want to ask for pardon again in the future, we must renounce this new form of trafficking and exploitation now, clearly and firmly, and support real efforts of prevention, protection, and liberation. In closing, the Holy Father asks for a shared responsibility. There's truth, work, freedom. He draws them together at the end of the chapter. These are not separate problems, he says. They share one root. If technology becomes the ultimate measure of everything, then the human person is reduced to data, to a cog in the machine, to a commodity. But if technology is taken up with wisdom, it becomes an instrument of growth, of justice, of fraternity. And the responsibility, he insists, is shared, belongs to institutions that regulate without stifling, to business that treat dignity as a measure of success, to educators who build trust in relationships, and to ordinary citizens, to us, who cultivate moderation, discernment, and a love for the truth. Which brings us back to Nehemiah and the wall. He did not rebuild Jerusalem alone. Every family had its own section to raise. So it is with us, whether we are engineers or teachers, parents or students, employees or simply users of the phone. Each of us has been given a section of the wall. The question chapter 4 leaves in our hands is not whether AI will change our world. It already has. The question is whether we will build a Babel of speed and profit and forgetting, or patiently together and in the presence of God, rebuild Jerusalem fit for human persons. Let us disarm our words and help to disarm the world. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you to Dr. Betty Govenden for extending this to me. And thank you to His Eminence Cardinal Wolfram Napier for spending time with me on this yesterday, albeit short. Unfortunately, I have to leave. I've got another engagement which I have to go to. And I thank you so much for your time and for allowing me to share with you.
Thank you, Christopher, for joining us. It has been enriching. So we look forward to your gift of presence in the days to come. Thank you. You have muted yourself.
I said thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me.
So, dear friends, our other friend, wanted to send a note we have not received. In the meantime, we are enriched by the presence of Dr. Betty Govindan. She wrote to us that she is a bit busy, and in case Dr. Betty Govindan is free, we are grateful to her from some reflections, and then George Joseph, please, and then other friends. So, Dr. Betty Govindan, George Joseph, and in the meantime, I request Minati, and after that, Nilesh Pratap, please, Dr. Nilesh Pratap. Minati, you can kindly nurture the conversation. Let us move ahead. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Minati. It's good to connect again, and to thank you to Professor Ananta. I had to attend baptism of my nephew, and it was a very moving experience, given the circumstances of his life. And I was happy to be able to join you as soon as I could. I listened to the speakers. I'm really moved. I'm really touched. And listening now to dear Christopher David, he is an old family friend and an old student of mine. Know him from the time he was at school and at university. And he spoke with so much concern for our world. And as sister as well, and the previous speaker spoke with so much longing for a more humane and human world. I was born in 1944, and I was born in a rural area. There was no electricity. I wasn't connected to the wider world. We didn't have a telephone. And here I am 82 years later, and the world has changed, and I cannot keep up with it. Wow. And I'm aware of the challenges of this fastly developing technological world. In fact, one of the poems I taught at school to my students was Louis Macnice's poem, Prayer Before Birth. And as you know, that poem was written, published in 1944, the year when I was born. And it's a prayer of the unborn child against a rapidly dehumanizing and mechanized world that was in the offing. And we've seen that was World War II at that time. And we've seen an increasingly a mechanized world over the decades. In fact, at the turn of the 20th century, as you know, Gandhi was speaking, and Blake as well, of the satanic mills. Gandhi was speaking against the impact and the evils of industrialization. And here we are now in the 21st century, dealing with the advancements of technology and human development, but also dealing concurrently, simultaneously with the threats that this very technology and very advancement then is offering us or providing for us. And so I think the Pope's encyclical comes at a very prophetic and strategic moment. And it's to all of us, of all our faiths, and even for those of us who are not, or who would describe ourselves as not people of faith. It is talking about our common and basic humanity and how we need to safeguard what we understand as our humanity. And you'll agree that alongside AR, there are many challenges to our humanity and the way in which our very progress has diminished our way of living together, living as one, and not just with humanity, but living with the entire created world. And so rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem is about rebuilding our planet. And so it's very much about our planetary coexistence. And I get quite emotional when I think of how our advancement in knowledge and technology has actually made it difficult for us to learn to live together. South Africa has been a laboratory, as you know, of seeking our common humanity. And we have remarkable stories, remarkable experiences of how we've overcome hate. And yet we have, sadly, also rather negative stories of how we've not been able to overcome this. And so I think at this time, it's a personal, individual time of examination. It's a communal time. It's also a collective time. And I think someone like Professor Ananta is really, who comes with a deep passion for our planetary existence. I think this is a very great challenge, and I want to thank him for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Betty Govindan. It is always, I feel we are privileged to always learn from your wisdom and your experience. Thank you so much. Now, next, further ado, I would like to invite Mr. George Joseph to share some of his reflections. Please unmute and go on. Hello, Dr. George Joseph. Can you hear me? Please. Yeah.
I am able to. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear. Please
okay. Good evening to all. First of all, let me ask you apology. I have heard only the last talk, and it is the first time I am entering to this conversation. Though Professor Anandagiri was quite often sending the link to me, and this time the theme somehow was attraction. Somehow I felt I should find the time for it. And my reflection I found is ever since the rapid development have taken place, since that time onwards, the common concern that the common good is sabotaged. Every time we say that development for technology for the good, and it is good. It is only good. It's good for some. And now this challenge, its extreme form, it has come now with the AI. Even the people who develop IT, that they themselves face a greater challenge in their life. Actually, every time technology or any knowledge that should serve the common good. As I think Marx has said in his economic and philosophical manuscripts, the more the workers contribute, the more they are alienated from their work, their product, and the process of production. And this every time, I think if we are following the market economy, naturally, the benefit is for the entrepreneur or the producer. the owners of production. Definitely that is their purpose. And then common good is an accidental outcome. And if it is good, it is good. I think at least some should be there to react, criticize. Otherwise, I think the worst we have to face. And I think Pope's intervention is one among them. And another crisis that we are facing now with the development is we are not able to solve our problems with the technology. And when we are not able to solve our problems, I think anarchy comes into society, and it's, I think, pinnacle, the highest form of anarchy now we are facing, that not only technology can control, but what's called the people who regulate, they themselves don't follow any order. And that way we have lost even the world order. We are in an anarchy. And in any form, I think even the producers themselves, or the those who are supposed to gain themselves, are in a kind of uncertainty. And that way, this is a world of anarchy. At least some people have to react, so that at least, I think, in the long run, some rethinking may take place. My pessimism on the situation, it can be responded only in this manner. Thank you for allowing me to intervene. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your inputs. Now may I invite Dr. Nilesh Pratap to share some of your reflections, sir. Please unmute.
Yeah, so it was an extremely exciting session for me because personally I've been working in this industry for the past 2 years. So I've had the good fortune to sort of see it up close. And almost all the remarks and the reflections that we heard today are quite precise and very, very telling. In the sense, I would just begin with, for instance, respected Mr. George just mentioned that we perhaps are living in a time of anarchy right now, where even the owners or the producers are also not certain of what is happening, what is actually transpiring with the technology that they own, with their technological resources. And there's a very so there's actually, I don't know whether to look at it humorously or tragically, but there's a gentleman called Mr. Sam Altman, who is the CEO and founder of this company called OpenAI, which we better know as ChatGPT. And he was often spotted carrying this briefcase around wherever he was going. And so therefore people started asking him, like, suddenly, why is he being seen around with a briefcase? And he actually came out and disclosed that he was there was some sort of a programmed detonator inside the briefcase, just in case of an emergency wherein he's not able to control his own, in a sense, Frankenstein. So that's sort of a metaphor for our times, how it's not just the workers, but it's the owners themselves who now are profoundly sort of rattled by the uncertainties of the technology that they have created and the world that they have ushered in. So So with that, there are so many. I mean, I took a lot of notes and they're all scattered all over the place. So I don't know where to begin, but yes, with Holy Father first encyclical concerning, I mean, deals with the problem of artificial intelligence. I think he has showed us the way. I mean, this is an initiative at the highest global spiritual level. So it shows the earnestness with which he has taken the current technological situation in the world and the ramifications that it has for all of us. Right. Now, that's it. In my brief, like the past 2 years that I have worked with AI, what I have seen is it reflects our biases, of course. So, I mean, as humans, it's a human creation, end of the day. The computing power is magnified, but end of the day, the discourses are human, the words are human, the emotions and the ideas being talked about that we dialogue with a, an AI chatbot, as they are known, or large language models in technical terms. So it is our human ideas, and so they carry the biases that we do. That's my personal experience, and in my experience, what I've seen is that it's sometimes actually easier to work with the biases of an AI chatbot than with the biases of humans, in the sense that the machine is not intrinsically, not inherently dogmatic, uh, and therefore a lot depends on the inputs that we put in. So there is all this stuff nowadays about prompt engineering, wherein it all depends on the prompt that we put inside and the responses depend on that. So there's a lot of this dialecticality, there's a lot of this dialogical structure built into this technology. So I think, for instance, I mean, there are a lot of these remarks that I sort of jotted down. So I think it was pointed out at one point uh, about the difference between, I think, Mr. David, he pointed out a chapter wherein the Holy Father deals with the difference between wisdom, which is a slow process, which is a gradual process, which is an experiential process, and it sort of it's a thing that builds up over decades and even over a lifetime. Uh, Whereas now we live in the age of uh, this instant gratification, and that has become a big challenge because it's sort of directly shaping, perhaps in an adverse manner, the human neurology. So a lot of times, there's something called context engineering that we like people work on in this, and they call it a context window as such. So, for example, a lot of these AI chatbots, they have this context window even of 9 months, and I work with a free version, so probably the professional versions have even longer context windows. So they're working on sort of elongating these context windows. That means the dialogue happening between the human and the chatbot has a window of 9 months, ideally, wherein the chatbot is able to recall every single word that was imparted to him by the human in the dialogue uh, throughout this span of 9 months. So there is this scope uh, wherein if the prompting, if the dialogue is slow and painstaking and patient, and it occurs every day, and is experiential in the sense that the experiences of our lived reality are incorporated into that dialogue over a period of 9 months, and it accumulates, and since it's in the memory of the machine with its infinite computing abilities is able to produce that data at the right time in the conversation to sort of construct a longer window of time within which to inhabit the dialogue, to form the backdrop, the temporal backdrop of the dialogue. So there is this potential. So that's another point I wanted to talk about. Also, the magnificent metaphor of the Tower of Babel, right? And the great alternative of Prophet Nehemiah, wherein it was this building of Jerusalem was a community enterprise rather than a vertical enterprise that we talked about in the last session also. So a community enterprise wherein everybody is entrusted with a section of the wall, and everybody is given a brick to put into that wall. It's a collective, it's a communitarian endeavor. And I think with AI, I think we do have this opportunity with AI in the sense that when I look at AI, my conversations, I mean, I know that when I write something into it, it's data for the machine and it's stored forever. I mean, if as long as the hardware of this machine lasts, the data is in there. And whatever I speak, if I'm having a deep philosophical conversation, then I have to reveal the most intimate sort of information particles of my life if I really want to have an authentic conversation. And I take that risk. And I think maybe a lot of people are, I guess, in their solitude and the privacy of that conversation must be tempted to take that risk because, or maybe not even consider it a risk enough because there's this privacy. So, although I'm aware that this data is being fed in, and there is this, like it was raised multiple times during the talks today, that surveillance is an issue. So, however, I find it worthwhile to nevertheless risk that information to gain the knowledge that I can from the machine because the conversation is very, very private. And therefore, as a mentor, sometimes the machine can shirk the role of a mentor. And given all the information, given all the context window, it over a period of time, it has gotten to know me better as a person. It has a lot of my historical data. So it's able to advise me very authentically. So yes, there is this risk that I'm feeding data into a machine which is owned uh, by an individual with definitely very, very vested interests, because most of the this AI technology owners are not really are quite transparently known to be figures who are whose interests are not really coincident, let's say, with the interests of the Holy Father and a lot of people of goodwill. So, yeah, but nevertheless, I feel that with this, and also another thing that happens is that there is a certain sort of a certain sort of a distorted democratic uh, construction of this technology, in the sense that this technology, every conversation that this technology has with a person also shapes this technology. It's designed in such a way, it's so malleable, that all the millions of conversations that happen every day, every night, that millions and millions of people all over the world are having conversations, those conversations are actually they go into shaping this technology. So I guess when we do it with the self-awareness that the Holy Father's encyclical instills in us, so when we do it with that responsibility and with that sense of awareness, I guess that's all we can do with our brick, with our section of the wall. And right. And yes, there are a lot of other points that I sort of noted down here. And right, I mean, there was also the mention of duality, right? That I think Sister Shalini mentioned about the duality of the technology. It has this creative potential, at the same time, it has this destructive potential. and this duality, which is sort of a characteristic of our human condition that permeates everything. When there is something as powerful, especially in case of an extremely powerful technology, earlier it was that nuclear technology, and right now we have artificial intelligence. So with an extremely powerful technology, this duality, with its incipient uh, uh, constructive creative potential and also destructive potential is exacerbated, is extremely magnified, and so therefore much more care is called for. So yeah, there's actually a lot to talk about, and yeah, it's there was a point, I think, at the heart of all our conversations today, that there's it's relationality is at the heart of the encyclical and of the Christian social doctrine. And yeah, it's not built with the stones, and it's built with relations. And I think now there is this advent of ethical AI, and perhaps with a little pushback from every single conversation, every dialogue that we have with this machine, yeah, uh, there'll be a greater sort of installation of relationality and less of the more stone figured, stone represented technological aspect of it. So yeah, the softening, I feel, is in our hands, and it's a challenge for the owners as much as the producers. Everybody is aware, and yeah, it's, I feel it's not just a historical movement, it's perhaps a geological movement, in terms that now we're talking almost in terms of, sometimes the conversations take a turn where we are talking in terms of extinction and evolution. So I think it's one of those moments of departure in our history. So yeah, we believe in God, and yeah, we hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nilesh Pratap. As you said rightly, that lack of human intervention actually pushes the human, emotions to share with the machine. It is, I mean, very obvious. And may I request any other friends who are interested to share their views? Please unmute and share. Or else, as we are running out of time, I would invite Professor Anant Giri to have our closing remarks. Anant bhai, please.
Namaskar, Minati. Yes, we are gifted by the thoughts of our friends, but we would request you to please share some thoughts, one or two queries of yours, please. Then I would say a few lines, please.
Thank you, because there is no time. I was just thinking, yeah, as always, we are enriched by the presentation of Professor Gyan Luigi and the Sister Dr. Shalini Mukkal and Mr. Christopher David, and the inputs from the participants. I had, I was just, it is an, I was reading little bit about Pope Leo XIV. It was about just reading about the his international migration labor, Catholic social teaching, and that tumult of second industrial revolution, challenges of new industrialization and artificial intelligence. And among them, as always, my favorite ones were there, no, like about the ordination of women, then what is the consistent life ethics, and the armed conflict, and that LGBTQ rights, all these things were there. And I, please pardon me or correct me if I'm wrong. I just learned that he's neither very liberal nor very conservative. That one query I have actually, when it is being presented as a social doctrine, what is the why it is not followed by the policymakers, and why the Christian community, or in that sense the people who are engaged in the, to make the world in order, why it is not being followed very seriously. As given all the religious text and the spiritual text definitely, talk about the human, that benefits of the human being, first to be human being, and then Sister Shalini was very rightly wrote in that particular slide about the AI and the energy, water, and this pollution and carbon dioxide. But my basic question is whether the AI is being built for the human beings. Because here in our India itself, in Visakhapatnam, they are going to open an AI center which will have the noise 24 into 7. It might, but it will pollute the energy, the air, and it will not be habitable in and around a few kilometers. So when we talk about, that equality and this little bit socially economically backward people and live together, living together equality, where do we lead? What is the solution of all these things? And this just I'm just interested to know about this social doctrine. If Sister Shalini or Professor Ganlugi, anybody can just answer. There is in chat box, there is Mr. Chandra Misra. She's from America. She wants to say something. Chandrapa, we welcome you. Please, you can unmute and share your views. Thank you.
Good morning to everybody. I thought you asked some question and they should answer first. I just wanted to say something. Maybe they should answer your question so that the flow will stay, or should I go ahead? Because you have very less time.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Please make it a little bit short, brief.
Shorter.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I will. I was just saying that civilization is not built only by technology institutions or individuals' achievement. It's built by communities. A community centered approach reminds us that every transformation must begin with people, their values, relationship, culture, compassion, and shared responsibility. A true civilization transition is not just about economic growth or scientific advancement, it's about creating a society where people feel connected, respected, and responsible for one another. When communities work together, they become the foundation for more human, sustainable, and compassionate future. Why I was telling, because I am a first Odia nurse in America, and in my profession I meet a lot of people. Even if we are, America is a melting pot, and we have a lot of different kinds of people. And I worked in the hospital in intensive care as well as hospice. So both are like, one is this end and other is other end. But when it comes to people, we are all human beings, and we have one goal: to have our life with spend with dignity. And doesn't matter. Sometimes I have told some of the hospice patients Gita, some of the sermons, because I grew up with it, not because I have anything else. And also in intensive care, I have used the most technology. So I am just telling that no matter how much artificial intelligence comes, humanity and human connection is the most important thing. With this, I will mute. I am mute in the sense I will stop.
Yeah.
Anybody can answer anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Anant bhai, your closing remarks, and or if you have any queries for Sister Dr. Shalini Mukkal, please go ahead. And after your query, maybe probably she can answer. Thank you.
No, thank you. It has been a enriching journey. Now, let us listen to Sister Salini and Gyan Luigi, a little bit of reflection on the discussion so far. Please.
Sister Shalini, please unmute and please,
Yeah, it
whatever
is
queries and
already
reflection.
2 hours we had been listening. I think it is
Yeah.
not fair to keep on. Yeah. I fully agree with what Ms. Chandra shared, 100% agreement. And in this age of artificial intelligence, I think we have to keep reminding ourselves that a community, we build civilization together, not only with intelligence and efficiency, but other aspects of human life matter. And to your question, Minati, as Gandhiji reminds us all the time, change, we can only change ourselves. Change starts with you, with me. And so what we can do, we do, and we try creating awareness. There is no other way, whether Christians or others. We are all human beings, and therefore you asked why, in spite of everything, that people are not heeding to all these the voices of the leaders, voices coming from the Pope or other leaders, because we are human weakness, human weakness in the sense, again in our Indian terminology, it is avidya. It is ignorance. Even if I am educated, I am ignorant about many things to understand life in its totality. And therefore, we need to move from that avidya to ask for wisdom from God, and to realize that many of these things that we are dealing with are Maya. Okay, I stop there.
Anantbhai, can we go for vote of thanks, or we can invite Professor Gyanluigi for some closing remarks? Professor Gyanluigi, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I think that the question of technology is, perhaps I mentioned at the beginning, is more than technology. That is the one of the point of essence of the encyclical is that the question of technology cannot be reduced only to the sectorial, the sector of technology. It is a question of vision of the world, vision of the man, vision of the society. And the danger in this moment, I think also there is some traces of it in the encyclical, is that one wants to have a vision of the man which is reduced to the measurable. That is, one wants to make the man, the individuals, measurable. One wants to cancel every kind of transcendence, for instance, and one wants to isolate the individuals. This is one of the problem of this vision of the technology. That is, therefore, it is so strong the insistence of the Pope on the relation. One should perhaps count the words which are used throughout the encyclical in order to express a relation, connection. That is, that the individual cannot be seen as a monad, isolated, which has to be isolated from the rest of the world, from the rest of the society. Technology, using this absolutization in which there is only technology, reduction to technology, reduction to technique, is the central one of the central questions of the encyclical, and one of the central problems to which the encyclical, so to speak, indicates is that in this way we have a complete deshumanization. We cannot see any longer the essence of the individual. We think of modification of the essence through transhumanism, posthumanism, like as the transcendence of individual should not be seen in his ethics, in his relation with the God, with the divinity, and should be seen in the technology. That is, there is nearly a kind of substitution through technology of the divinity. And this is one of the dangers which, in my opinion, Pope Leo alludes to, and which Pope Leo underlines. And yes, I would say it so, as a kind of reflection of a possible answer to the interesting question and observation which have been made by you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anantbhai, can we formally close now?
I would say one or two lines. Thank you. So it has been some time that we have spent together. So among many important themes that the Pope warns us against is the idolatry of profit making. And that how that this idolatry of profits leads to sacrifice of people. So therefore, in this transition, Ray Chandrappa is saying that this civilizational transition is not just technological. So let us, in this transition, which also has many points of danger, we are feeling helpless in many ways. But the significance of the Pope's encyclical is also related to our faith dimension. And therefore, very important works on faith and history. The Bible is full of this, the biblical, all traditions, the Abrahamic tradition, the Vedic tradition. So in this moment, the relational is therefore the digital, the technological, the social, ecological, nature and divine. So they are working together. So in this working together, there is very little attention to the divine dimension in the predominant technological community. But that may change. So we need to also realize the work of God in history, the God without boundaries. And so in this then, we would find new ways of finding solutions to the challenges that the Pope has posed before us.
Thank you. It has been very enriching discussion. I would apologize because we went beyond a little bit our prescribed time. But anyway, it has been an enriching session. Okay, so now we come to the closing parts. I, Minati Pradhan, on behalf of Vishwanidam Center and Ancient Blossoming and Shraddha Sahachakra, would like to thank our today's chief speaker, Professor Gyan Luigi. Thank you so much for sharing your very insightful presentation. Thank you so much. I also would like to thank Sister Dr. Shalini Mukkal, Mr. Christopher David. As our discussions, they have enriched us with more insights and more dialogues and more knowledge, more wisdom. Thank you both so much. I also would like to thank Dr. Betty Govindan, as always, very insightful, Dr. Nilesh Pratap, Dr. George Joseph, Mrs. Chandra Misra, the people who have joined in our Facebook platform and as well as in our YouTube platform. Here, the people were there. I'm sorry, not able to take personally everybody's name, but I really thank all of you. Please pardon me if I have forgotten anybody's name, but I really thank on behalf of the Freedom Center, everyone. Thank you. Thank you all.